Why do so many women feel off even when they're doing everything right? They're eating clean, they're working out, they're trying every protocol they see online, and yet symptoms don't go away. Because what if the problem isn't that you're not doing enough? It's that no one has actually uncovered what's really going on. Longevity isn't luck. It's a lifestyle built on habits, culture, and intention. Welcome to Age with Intention podcast. I'm Art Aviles. We're here to explore how people around the world live longer, stronger, think clearer, and age with purpose. So today's episode is for the person who feels like they're doing everything right, but still don't feel right. So today we're sitting down with Michelle RICAILLE. Did I say that right, Michelle?
Michelle RICAILLE.
RICAILLE. Okay, great. And she is the holistic health detective, naturopathic, homeopathic, a long list of great holistic experience and, of course, knowledge. So after spending over a decade searching for answers to her own problems, her own struggles, only to feel more lost in the system, everything changed when she discovered a completely different way of healing. So now she helps others uncover the root causes that most people and most practitioners completely miss. So Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, so let's start here. Your journey into this work. How did it come to be from your theory to your experiences? Take us back when you take us back when you were 19 years old. What started happening around 19 years old with your health? What symptoms were you dealing with at that time?
It's quite personal, but I'm very open, and I'm sure a lot of women actually go through this. So at 19, women actually are supposed to have their yearly gynecology appointment, and they do a test, and they found like precancer cells in my cervix. So the lady wanted to do LEEP procedure where they cauterize the cervix, and they did it twice. They said, "Oh, it's pre-cancer cells. We're not sure." So since then, that was done at the age of 19. I developed very severe yeast infections because it disrupted the whole bacteria and microbiome of that area, and for 10 years I struggled with really severe yeast infections, which I know a lot of women struggle with.
One of them.
And I tried everything. I mean, diflucan, and I saw so many different gynecologists, and they always like, oh, take more probiotics and acidophilus and diflucan, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And sometimes I wanted to go to the hospital, the ER, because I was in so much pain. And when we moved to Singapore, so 10 years I had really bad yeast infection, and we moved to Singapore, and it got worse because of the humidity and maybe stress of moving. And I was walking around Little India in Singapore, and there was a free homeopathic clinic. And I never, growing up in the United States, you never hear of homeopathy. I mean, it's not in anybody's repertoire. You're never educated on it. So I did some research. I'm like, oh, what is homeopathy? And of course, Google says, oh, it's pseudoscience, it's fake, it's just water, it's fake medicine. Right. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? It's a free clinic. And I walked in, and I'll never forget, it was this Indian woman, long black hair. She took my case for about an hour and a half, asked me like a whole bunch of questions, my personality, my lifestyle, what I eat, what I like, when it started and everything. And she prescribed to me a remedy, a homeopathic remedy, which later I realized was my constitutional remedy, Scipia. and Scipia 30C, and she's like, okay, just take it 1 week before you get your menses, because the yeast infection would always get worse before my menses, during menses, and after menses. So around that time, and she's like, just take it a week before, and it should start to have some improvements.
Right.
And so I did that, and it was like 50% improvement. So that was like
50% after not seeing any improvements whatsoever for 10 years. Wow.
exactly. So, and that was just one dose. And then she's like, you may have to take it over the next few months until you have no more symptoms. So I took it for 3 months. So one dose, one time a month. And after that, and it's been almost 20 years since I've had a yeast infection. For me, that was one remedy of homeopathy that cured me.
Right. Of course, personalized to you, like you said, your constitution.
Yeah.
And for people that don't understand what that means, give them a little example of what that constitution was all about.
Yeah, so there's two types of homeopathy. There's more of like kind of the modern homeopathy, which some doctors use, or some naturopathic or functional medical doctors use. And that's like if you fall down, you get hurt, maybe you take arnica. Or you have a really high fever, you take belladonna. So those are remedies for just acute cases. You have the flu, you take gelsemium. You have mouth ulcers, you can take Merxol, okay? But then if somebody has a chronic, something that has been in their system for a long period of time, usually over at least over 3 months, 2 months, the acute remedy, it's not going to work anymore because the chronic issue has affected their whole system, their whole pathology. And so you need a very specific remedy for that person. So a constitutional remedy will look at all the physical symptoms. So maybe I had chronic yeast infection, but maybe I also had headaches or constipation or eczema. So it looks at all the physicals, but it also looks at personality. It looks at was I born vaginal or C-section by my mother? Any past traumas, any like medication surgeries that I've had that affect me as a totality of a person.
Right. And that's the, like you mentioned, traumas. Who doesn't have some kind of emotional stressors that are become or that become toxic in our bodies, and especially the gut, and then we
Yeah,
become that perfect host, and then we carry that, these bacterias, whether it's yeast infection, H. pylori, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
but you carry that for a long time, and it
yeah,
doesn't go. And you think that going back to the doctor is going to do it, but they can't solve it. And it's so funny how the main story always is, I went to this doctor, he told me this. I went to another doctor, told me this thing. Not doing. It's like it's because you're not getting to the root cause. So let's keep working, try to find someone
yeah,
that could do that for you wherever you are, right?
yeah.
So that's so for you, that was the moment where like, oh my God, something is really going on here. I'm 3 months in, so I got to learn more about this. So this is where you started studying this.
Yeah, I went to homeopathy school in Singapore, 3.5 years. And then, yeah, I was working at free clinics and I was treating people, and I saw people would come in with 20 years of allergies or, 10 years of this. And if you find the right remedy, the constitutional remedy that really matches the person, I mean, it's magic. It really is magic. And like, just like that, symptoms just disappear. It's hard to find the constitutional remedy. And sometimes it takes a few times that people don't fully open up. A lot of times, and from my experience, there's always kind of that trigger, whether it's a surgery, whether it's they lost their mother, or they had a bad breakup, or very often it's some emotional trauma or a really physical trauma that happens to them that just kind of, puts their system over edge. I don't know. That creates the environment for dysfunction to happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we see a lot of. And now it's more, yes, I did mention emotional because that stands out a lot. And then, but we have environmental stressors that are also weakening us, right? So it makes a lot of sense when you're vulnerable like that, that something's going to give and you're going to let whatever enter the system that now becomes a foreign pathogen or whatever that will take over your body. And then we start using our bodies like mechanics. They start breaking it down. Like, oh, it's your spark plug. Oh, it's the fuel injection. Oh, it's this. And you're just removing parts, putting parts in, and literally nowadays removing parts and adding parts. It is crazy. So we want to make sure we let women know, hey, there is a way. You have to keep digging and come to the right people. So that's why I want to make this show about bringing people together, practitioners and people that are having issues, chronic issues. Okay, we're not saying we solve acute stuff. That's for a different system. But this is chronic issues, which is the number one problem we have in health and wellness, especially in the United States of America, and now all over the world. We're seeing it everywhere. So Michelle, since you do have the title of the Holistic Health Detective, right? So let's do this. Let's ground this into a real scenario here. So let's say there is a woman and she's in her mid-40s and she comes to you and she's dealing with massive bloating, intestinal inflammation, just can't eat and can't find a doctor that tells them what the problem is. They do their blood work. Everything looks great. The liver looks great. No leaky gut. Everything looks normal. They do the blood work, which is the standard blood work, right? And eventually she finds out later, because she ended up with the fourth doctor now. And the fourth doctor finally says, hey, you actually have ulcers, like gastric ulcers. You have high acid. So, oh, looks like it's H. pylori, but we're going to run tests. Comes back and yeah, sure. Oh, and then antibiotics are prescribed, right? Then that just makes her feel even worse. Then all of a sudden she goes to another doctor and finally it's SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, which, okay, yeah, bacteria, yeast, oh, hello, right? And she tries the antibiotics, fails. She goes to, a trendy detox, fails, different diets. Nothing is fully working. So now she's overwhelmed, confused, obviously. I'm talking for many women here. And honestly, they're exhausted, right? So when they come to me and then I tell them, well, there's ways and this and that. Like you said, find your constitution. I call it your biotype, right? So you got to find your biotype so you can understand your body first. And then from there, you can start assessing, analyzing. And of course, I'm not saying to do it yourself, but I'm just trying to tell you this is the framework that you go through. Once you're analyzing, you're going to discover the imbalances, which is going to lead to the root cause. So get someone that can help you do that, right? And that's the breakdown. So let's see what the detective, okay, would do in this point. She's in her mid-40s, and that's the issues. And she's, of course, this has gone on for like probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Where does she really turn to now?
So if I had someone presenting a case to me like this, or I'm having a consultation, I would first ask, when did you start having these symptoms? And if they said, okay, around 10 years ago, I always start by like, okay, what happened around 10 years ago? And and very often if maybe they had a bad breakup, or I don't know, something happened. Very often, if it's still really present in their system, that's affecting their vital force. So I look at a lot of the vital force, how strong the vital force is of somebody, their prana, their chi. And if they start to describe what happened, like 10 years ago, or like, oh, they're had an accident or car accident or whatever. Okay, explain it to me. And if it's very vivid and they know the day, they know what they wore, they know everything, it's still as if they're reliving that trauma. If they can describe exactly what happened. And so that is, always creating a chronic stress in their system. So there's the number one cause of chronic health issues is stress. And usually coming from either a traumatic accident, usually an emotional stress, whether it's grief or fear or anger or something like that, that is causing this chronic stress. And when it could also be work, it could be your boss, I mean, so many things. So I try to get them to reflect on first what happened 10 years ago. Now, if nothing happened, okay, they're like, nothing happened, I don't know. Okay, then I start to ask, okay, did you get sick? Did you have antibiotics? Did you get a vaccine? Did you have a surgery? Did you change your diet? Did you move? Did you travel? Did you go somewhere in Africa? So all of these things that can maybe alter their system,
Right.
and, or they got a new job. And so I try to pinpoint, try to identify first, was there a starting point? And typically it's always dealing with stress. And then, or maybe it's just they've been in a really stressful relationship for the last 10 years or work or whatever. And that is the number one example. This person has been identified as H. pylori. Okay? They have H. pylori, which is causing the stomach ulcers, which is causing the pain. And when someone is in a high level state of stress, it releases cortisone and adrenaline. And H. pylori has actually been with the humans for like 50,000 years. Like, it's a really beneficial survival bacteria that lives in the stomach lining of the mucosa. And it's there for a reason. It helps regulate our hormones for our appetite, for our metabolism. And they actually found that if your H. pyloris are gone, your H. pylori bacteria is gone, you don't have this regulation for eating and your metabolism, and this actually increases obesity. Um,
So you
so
can't go in there and just level them, like kill them all with,
no,
like, for example, antibiotics. It's a balance. There, we talk about the microbiome a lot, and even that bacteria, it's part of the ecosystem in there,
yes,
right? And then that's going to destroy even more. So we're coming in with, so basically what you just said, it starts with some kind of nervous system already, that comes into play, right? The nervous system comes into play because it's some kind of stressor, and this emotional or energetic stressor shows up physically
mm-hmm.
in the gut, our microbiome. Wow. And so then we're getting rid of it because the answer here is always antibiotics. And in many places, I'm not just picking on the US, many places, let's just do antibiotics, kill it all. Then we'll fix your gut later once everything's gone. But easier said than done, right?
Well, and often they prescribe PPIs or antacids, and
Because they
actually,
say that it's too acidic, right?
yes, well, actually, H. pylori thrives in low stomach acid.
So it
And
needs the high stomach acid, but they're trying to take it away from you.
exactly. And when you lower the stomach acid, because the stomach acid is there to kill bacteria. And when your stomach acid is too low and you eat some meats or whatever vegetables that have some hasn't been washed properly, that bacteria then enters your small intestine, then you get SIBO. So the stomach acid is super important. It helps to digest the food, the enzymes, break down protein. So if you lower the stomach acid too much, it's like a recipe for disaster.
Oh my goodness, and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
They blame it on you're producing too much acid, and they give them a prescription for to reduce the acid. Here we go. And then the other problem is, of course, the antibiotics. So now the individuals, she's been trying to fix it the wrong way with the wrong layers that obviously she's been prescribed, right? So that's a huge problem there. So then, what would be the first step actually for that individual to actually start on the right path, right?
Yeah. So if I mean, when I ask all these questions, and if I suspect it's stress, okay, or it's coming from a trauma, we work on that first. So if it's a trauma or emotional thing that they're just attached to, usually homeopathy is the best with emotional issues. Um, if it's just stress with their relationship or their work, there are, if they can't change it, some people cannot. I teach them how to regulate their vagus nerve.
Right. There you go. Awesome.
Gargling, humming, deep belly breathing, because that helps to control the nervous system. So they just have to learn how to regulate their nervous system. So if the root cause of their H. pylori, their gas, their bloating, because all of that, their SIBO, their H. pylori, that's not the cause of
Right.
their
It's
issue.
not the root cause. Right.
Those are the symptoms of the root cause. So if the root cause is stress, then you need to work on the stress. They can take all the supplements, all the detox protocols, but if they're still in a state of stress, chronic stress, it's not going to get better. So if I think that, okay, I don't sense there's stress here, then I'll look at parasites, um, heavy metals, intestinal infections. Um, yeah, I ask them to check their stomach acid, which you can do by a very simple test that we do in naturopathy medicine is the sodium bicarbonate test. Do you know
Right.
this one?
Right. Yes. And of course, but you're checking because you want to make sure it's high enough and then actually low,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Right. The opposite of what they're
Yeah.
telling them at
Because if their stomach
allopathic.
acid is too low, the H. pylori will be more active, which then will start to deteriorate the mucosal lining, increase the ulcers and everything. So I always start emotional first, and then I start to dig and look at, okay, what else could be is the root cause, the trigger.
This is when you come in with testing as well, right? So you're using test as well,
Yes.
right after the emotional. That's great because first you're looking at the nervous system in reality by asking questions, and you could discover questionnaires have always been the best, and that's when that homeopathy is coming in. So you also do neuroenergetic kinesiology. What are you actually doing with that? So you're doing the homeopathy, you're testing, and then you have this neuroenergetic kinesiology. What are you actually detecting there with that? And what is it?
So neuroenergetic, so kinesiology is muscle testing, and neuroenergetic kinesiology is where we try to use muscle testing to do identify where the stress is coming from. So it's just a biofeedback where I communicate with the body, and from the terms of energetic, we also look at the chakras, we look at the meridians, we do acupressure points. So it's not just kinesiology is just like muscle testing. But this is looking at the brain, we look at the emotions, the chakras, the auras, the meridians, and we try to identify where the stress is. And sometimes maybe, the stomach issue, the H. pylori, maybe it's a blocked meridian. Maybe it's an overactive third chakra. So it's just another like tool in my tool belt to
Right.
try to identify kind of the root cause.
Yeah, and that's great that you mentioned that because I believe in integration, right? So integrative, holistic health practices. It could be traditional Chinese medicine, like you mentioned, mixed together with some Ayurveda or homeopathy with naturopathic. Everything coming together. Functional medicine. I know a lot of the practitioners in functional medicine are having issues because it's a big thing to do. Yeah, let's supplement the individual, but it's not the right time or the layers are off. I've noticed that a lot in functional medicine. They're going ahead and just doing a quick micronutrient test, which is you get to see a lot of deficiencies, but you're skipping. Like you need layers. So
Yeah.
that's great that you have the integrated holistic health practice like this, where it's lined up, and you get to really go deep. That's basically what you're doing. You're going deeper, and you're personalizing it, which is great. That's why it was very effective for you, right? When you first started with this. So for someone listening right now who feels exactly like this person that we obviously our example case study, right? What's the first thing they need to understand about their body that could change everything? I know we touched on it a little bit, but what do they need to understand about their body first?
They need to look at the stresses in their life. That is number one.
Yeah.
And they
Okay.
need to just really think about it, write it down, okay, when did my symptoms start? What happened around that time? What are the stresses in my life? And I often tell people like health issues is like a glass of water, and it's like you have your initial stress. But then, if you also have toxicity from the environment, or you're not eating healthy food, or whatever, it's just a buildup. At some point, it's going to overflow, and that's when you get this, symptoms. So, just looking at in your life the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the stuff you put on your skin, all of this has a huge impact, and it's just building up, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden the body can't take anymore. And very often, actually, what I realize in European biological medicine, which is very commonly practiced here in Switzerland, is they their first treatment of like the first 6 months is remove all of the stuff that is toxic. So they really focus on detoxification and building up the microbiome, rebalancing the microbiome. That's the first thing they do.
That's what
They
they
don't
do in Switzerland. You said that's where you
Yeah,
are right now,
it's
obviously.
called European biological medicine, and they don't overload people with tons of supplements. If you're already so toxic, why why add like 10 extra pills? A lot of synthetic supplements are toxic to the system. So, like, you have to first take things away. Take out the stress, take out everything that is like toxic in your life. I mean, mold, look at everything. And
Yes.
once you start to clear that away, and not just take all these pills or supplements or this cream or that, whatever, take all the stuff away first, let your system breathe, recalibrate a little bit, and then maybe, okay, maybe I need a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So,
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's the first thing that we need to do is remove. That's one of the big R's of remove before you start re-inoculating the
yeah,
system. Remove things, and it's very easy to start. I mean, if you look at just go in your home, you can start removing a lot of bad things.
yeah,
One of my favorites to go to is checking the water in your home. What
yeah,
kind of water are you really drinking? Because first of all, since we are whatever it is, 70%, some say 75%, 80% water, then we need to look at that water intake uh, we are drinking. That's not removing, that's just making sure that the water we're supposed to be drinking every day is cleaner or clean as can be, and then start removing a lot of things around the environment, even our daily habits. Like myself, I just spoke to you about wearing these blue light blockers because I overdid it last night. We're not going to be perfect. We're gonna overdo it with EMFs, with blue lights, with not our circadian rhythm, not staying within our rhythm or our alignment. Like yesterday, I went over 11 o'clock. You're supposed to be in bed earlier. And I feel it. You feel the difference. So just the clarity as well. So I feel like today a little bit lower than I usually am in the mornings. And so I just said, I'm not going to add more blue light today. I'm gonna take away, like you're saying,
Yeah.
I'm taking away little things. So this is like a daily practice, not just I'm gonna take away this for a week or that for a week. I'm gonna do a fasting. No, it's a daily practice because you're waking up and we're gonna feel different daily. So if we get used to doing maybe like a diary of how we're feeling, what caused this change that I'm feeling today, or I came up with a flu. What do you think it is? And then you actually do find the imbalances, and you're able to remove them before you add, you know, some kind of crazy trendy diet out there. So that's awesome that you're saying removing things. That should be like our first instinct. But I know we're overthinking a lot of stuff, right? We're
Yeah.
overthinking a lot. Morning rituals that you like to see from people. What would you start with? That it's not going to cost them any money. It's like what's free and available for them when they start their day.
First, the water, filtered water from a good filter machine. Fresh lemon water, number one.
Okay, I forget to do that one.
Fresh lemon. Just half a lemon, squeeze it. That is like maybe a little pinch of, Celtic sea salt or something. You get your minerals, and that is number one.
That starts off the energy right there, right? How about any grounding that you recommend or stepping outside?
Of course. I mean, actually, our eyes have the greatest surface area of mitochondria, which makes your ATP, your energy. And when you look at the sun, it stimulates the mitochondria, and our eyes have the most. I mean, your heart actually has the most, but per surface area, your eyes. So just like looking at the sun, and even if there's no sun out, just being outside, obviously earthing. Not everybody has grass. A lot of people live in the cities and apartments, but if they could just, I don't know, just look outside and try to get some rays of sunlight into the eyes, will help stimulate their mitochondria and boost their energy. Some people say, oh, cold showers. There's also a debate on that with women, that it stresses their system too much, these ice baths and everything. And if your system's already stressed, you're going to stress it more with like a freezing cold shower.
Agree
you
with
know,
that one. Yeah,
so
yeah, it all
um,
depends. That's what they ask. What do you think about cold plunges? Well, it depends. Depends on the individual's situation at the moment. Why are you going to add more cortisol shots to your body
yeah.
with that when there's other ways, right?
Well,
So one thing,
if you know the Wim Hof,
yeah,
you
Wim
know,
Hof.
Wim Hof, he does the cold plunging, but he does a lot of breathing before and after, which helps regulate his nervous system. So if you do this deep breathing, it calms the nervous system down. And then he stresses it with the cold plunge. So it's okay if you can balance the nervous system. So if you do cold plunging without this deep breathing practice, it's overstimulating the nervous
Yes,
system.
yes, you're missing that important aspect there. And that's one of the morning rituals that I love doing is breathing. Not quite Wim Hof, right?
Yeah.
He's amazing at what he does, but I do the deep breathing purposely with intention. And that's obviously to regulate the nervous system. You need more mental clarity to get your day started, getting some energy. It's going to help. And I like to do it with sunlight. And like you said, even if it's cloudy, you're still getting the light. So with light, nature light, with being outside already, you're already, like I said, you're killing three birds with one stone, not just two birds with one stone. So we're just jumping into that cold water, not even practicing the breathing that gets us ready, regulated, which makes a lot of sense. Makes
I
a lot
mean,
of sense.
obviously, movement is important to start to move the lymphatic system, all of that. And and like when you brush your teeth, gargle stimulates the vagus nerve, just gargling goo, 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 every time you brush your teeth or drink a little bit of water. All of these things can help. And yet, like you said, they're free, they're simple. Lemon water, look at the sun, movement, little bit of deep breathing, gargling when you brush your teeth, stimulate the vagus nerve.
Yes, the
And
vagus nerve is a big thing. I think people should read about it more so they can start understanding it. It's there. It's easy to get that working. Like I said, gargling, humming. Some it depends on the music. Some singing. Yeah,
I mean, just cold water splashing on the face
that's
helps
one
to
of my favorites.
stimulate the
Yep.
vagus nerve. Obviously,
So
deep
what
breathing.
what's something you see in clients that all the time that they don't even realize it's holding them back? Let's pick on my number one fans, which are, someone that's 40 and over, and they've probably been doing this for a long time. They don't realize this is holding them back, and they're probably not willing to let go of it so easily because it's part of their beauty.
You mean all the creams and lotions and
Probably,
and
right?
everything that they put on their skin that is so toxic?
Yes. Okay. So I think, yeah, like you said, creams, all that stuff. It's really hard to let go because it's part of the beauty aspect of doing your nails, the creams, the put the sunscreen up, put the spray that perfume right on
Oh,
the
yes.
neck.
And it's just a buildup. It's just building that glass up of toxicity. Yeah. I always tell people if you won't eat it, like if you won't swallow it, don't put it on your skin. And
Right.
I
That's
believe the
crazy.
kitchen can have everything, like I use tallow on my skin, castor oil, nothing
Right.
else.
The
You know,
ghee, you can use that for the skin,
the
for much
ghee,
of the beef tallows, the olive oils,
the
castor
coconut
oils. It's in the
coconut
kitchen. It's
oil.
right there.
I mean, like I tell women natural deodorant, coconut oil with a little bit of lemon essential oil. That's the best natural deodorant,
And there you
because the
go.
the coconut oil, helps with the bacteria and everything and the smell and
It doesn't cost you $15 for deodorant.
oh, but then you're getting the benefits of
Right.
coconut oil. You're getting the benefits of the essential oil. It goes right into the lymphatic system. I mean, if you have some breast cancer, I would use frankincense, frankincense oil with coconut oil if someone has breast cancer. So things like that. I, I truly believe nature provides everything.
Right. Agree with you 100%. And I'm sure many people do once they start realizing, hey, hold on a minute here. There is a better way, right? So that's awesome information. Before we close, I want to ask you some questions that I do with everybody. One of them is, let's go back now with what you know. Let's say we go in a little time machine here. If you could go back and sit down with the 19-year-old person that you were, what was one piece of advice that you would actually give her now that you know what you know?
Honestly, Uh, this is just personally for me. This is not recommendation for everybody, but to never go to a gynecologist again.
Yeah, hey,
That would have been my recommendation because it really destroyed me.
yeah, it's crazy. I know it's a short answer. It's like but you had such a horrible experience. You carried this for over 10 years. So obviously that's going to stand out like, oh my God, where did I go wrong from the start? Oh, I went here when I should have looked at at another route. But you know what? Experiences. There you go. You went through those experiences and you somehow stumble upon the homeopathic while you were in Singapore, right? So sometimes it's not going to be next door. You know, it's gonna meet with you somewhere. So I hope this does for many other women that are struggling right now, and men. Okay, everyone has their, like you said, their glass overfills eventually, and or like I say, or you pass that threshold, you go over that threshold, and oh boy, you're in trouble, and you need to find your way out. And I've been there with chronic inflammation myself, being that supposedly very healthy because I was in the fitness industry. I was very fit, and I broke down. So been there, done that. Okay, so Michelle, for those listening right now that they feel like they've tried everything, where can they find you and connect with you? I know we have you on Instagram. I will leave that information there. So give us a little bit of where we could find you.
My website is
Okay.
holistichealingdetective.com. That's also my Instagram page, Holistic Healing Detective.
I love the name. I love the name. And this is, again, people, as you, if you notice, it's not going to be guesswork. It's a deep investigation there, and it could be online. I mean, you're saying you are in Zurich, Switzerland, but of course from the States, right? So, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. People that are listening right now, if this episode helped you, you know, share it with someone that you think it could help as well. Again, I'm going to leave her information. You can reach out to me or reach out to her directly, and we will find a way, because there is a way for you. And remember that aging isn't the problem. It's actually aging without the intention that becomes the problem. So thank you very much. Again, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you, Art.
And we will leave your information, and we will invite you again for another detective work on something else. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.